Hello, Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for the final chapter of Fire Force, chapter 304. That's right, this is the final ending of Fire Force, and for as many problems as I've had with how Fire Force is wrapping up, I'm still very much not ready to see it go. But when we last left our heroes, we opened sometime in the aftermath of Shinra creating the new world, and like mid-date between Tamaki and Juggernaut, which also served as kind of a kind of frame story to learn a little bit about what's happened in the world. And then apparently, Shinra ended up creating these giant monsters that we now need an organization called the World Heroes Force to fight. We also learned that without pyrokinesis, people's strength is now measured by the strength of their soul. Tamaki and Juggernaut have this weird bit about how their souls aren't very strong, which seems kind of fake to me, but whatever. We see who is in the World Heroes Force. Obi, Hinoa, Vulcan, Victor, Benny, Conroe, and of course Shinra Arthur Ogun. We find out that Arthur is back from space, somehow, with an Excalibur, who is very familiar to readers of Soul Eater. And they're hunting this, 100-meter-long serpent that is somehow tied up with Inca, who is now appearing in a witch hat and mentions wanting Shinra to chase her forever. And that's where we jump into our final chapter. Like I said at the time, it's a little bit too world-building heavy and not, character-focused as I think an epilogue should be. But let's see how Okubo wraps all this up. So we have what is the cover of the magazine, which is just the cast of Fire Force. We have Company 8 here, we have Sho, and Benny and Conroe, and Joker, and even Inca's here. It's a neat little commemoration of this cast. Also, Juggernaut and Ogun are here, and 119 are in the background. Then we have this picture, it's like this two-page color spread of Shinra just pulling on his lips. The grand conclusion. Thanks, NN fans, for 7 burning years. Chapter 304, The Hero's Tale. So I'll talk about how long I've been with this series at the end of the video. I'm going to have some kind of sentimental look back on this series at the end of the video, I expect, given how long I've been with it. But anyway, we have our scan later page, and we don't have a go by the manga page. It's not here. Though we do have a little bit of a support the official manga at the bottom of the scan later page. Anyway, also, this is an extra length chapter, it looks like. Ignoring those first 3 pages of the magazine cover, the chapter cover, and the scan later page, there are still 30 pages left, which is much longer than usual. But we open where we left off, with our boys sort of staring down Inca. And Inca just asks Shinra, "Well, Shinra, change your mind?" Which you don't have any idea what she's talking about. But Shinra sort of questions, "It was you that summoned that huge serpent, wasn't it? Look, I'm not giving you what you want." "Why not? Don't be so stingy." "I want to have your babies." Okay. So I briefly talked last week about how, with the possible exception of Inca, every single female character we saw in the first half of the epilogue was tied in somehow to, their romantic aspirations or dates or men. We have Tamaki and being on a date with Juggernaut, and Iris and Hibana at the cafe talking about Iris's attraction to Shinra. And then we had Maki's brief little mention how she's apparently, for some reason, going against her entire character arc from Nether 2, is not part of the World Heroes Force, and she's just gone back to sitting at home with her dad, which, after thinking about that for a minute longer, just felt highly counter to everything we knew about Maki. And now we have Inca here, whose motivation is apparently that she wants to have Shinra's babies. And yeah, I'm not here for this. And Ogun just sort of teases Shinra. It's very sort of like their friendship, despite all the problems I just said, that Ogun Shinra Arthur vibe is still real good. As Ogun sort of needles Shinra, "Ooh la la." And then Shinra protests, "I already have Iris. Are they actually a thing now?" And Inca goes on, what? Gross! Don't get the wrong idea. You think I want to be with a boring lame-o like you? And Shinra's confused. Huh? But I thought you liked me. And Inca says, the only thing I want is your seed. This whole bit here is just kind of a weird way to end the series. Okubo. And Shinra is really uncomfortable now. What? Are you out of your mind? There's no way I'm giving it to you. And Inka's just, why not? You asked Link, you could get it easy peasy. Meaning, I think, like, without actually having to have sex with her. And Shinra's just, that's not what I'm saying at all. But Inka goes on, I want the baby of the hero who saved the world. It's not like you can't make more afterwards. Hand it over, Scrooge. And Shinra's just, why are you so hung up on this? And Inka goes on, you of all people should get it. Now that this is a world of death, the value of life has changed. And well, that's made me want a life that will carry on. Okay. This is still just, like, not really what I think we should be focusing on in the last chapter, but okay, Okubo. Shinra just, like, stares at her. And Shinra's just, if you want a world-saving hero, why not take Arthur? He's just trying to shove his friends off on her. And Arthur's just, whoa, don't drag me into this. And Inka's just, no way. He's an idiot. And Arthur just goes right back to needling Shinra. Heh, sucks to be you. And Shinra just stares at him. You do realize he just dissed you, right? And Inka tells Shinra, I wanted to die before, but you changed the world, and now I found a reason to live. You saved me in every sense of the word. And like I said, back when we were dealing with, like, the pillars in Haumea's mindscape or whatever, that whole bit, Inka wanting to die, is just not real. I feel like we need to see more of Inka for that to land, and Okubo just did not write enough of this character for that bit to work. And Inka tells Shinra, I want to leave behind descendants with a guy like you. Sound good? And Shinra's just, no, sorry. God, you're so lame. And she, like, gives him a little peace sign as she leaves. Well then, maybe I'll just continue wrecking the world and being a witch until you say yes. And she stares off with a sort of forlorn look in her eye. And she turns back. Everyone's having a blast in this world you made, Shinra. Thanks, hero. And Shinra seems like actually accept the thank you. No biggie. And then we cut to the moon, just laughing with that, like, trickle of blood at the corner of its mouth. We see Maki and I guess a friend of Maki's at, like, a clothing store. We see Burns and Joker just kind of hanging out. I love that Burns kept the horns. They're so good. We see Sho and Nataku as buddies. Which, like, is Nataku a little older than I thought he was? Or maybe, like, they seem to be in class is the thing. In the same class. And maybe it's just that, like, Sho spent so long with the death cult, he has to go back to, like, 3rd grade or something. And then we see Hibachi, the twins from Asakusa. We see this woman. Oh, it's Haumea. I didn't recognize her for a moment without her visor, but it is Haumea with Charon. And I hope I'm just misreading this. I'm desperate that is not a baby bump under Haumea's dress. It might not be. It's not exactly terribly well defined. But that would just be really bad for a lot of reasons. The whole distinctly paternal vibe between Haumea and Charon. I hope I'm misreading that. But anyway, we see the sun also now laughing. And we cut to 25 years later. Okay. So that Inca bit's just sort of there. It's real weird, and again, not sure how or if Inca being a witch is supposed to tie into Soul Eater. If again it is, I'm still kind of skeptical if this is like a definitive Soul Eater prequel or if it just really fucking seems like it. But anyway, 25 years later, and we see the old Company 8 Cathedral. With the whole New Tokyo behind it. And wearing the robes of the World Heroes Force, we see a 42-year-old Shinra, Supreme Commander of the World Heroes Force, Kusakabe Shinra, age 42. And he doesn't look that old, I'll say that much. He just sort of looks like in his mid-30s, but I guess I can buy it being 42. And someone comes up to him, "Good morning, Supreme Commander Kusakabe. A congratulatory message from President Obi arrived." Is Obi president of what? President of the World Heroes Force, or like a president of the world kind of, like a political president kind of thing? And Shinra tells this guy, he's a busy man. I appreciate it. And the guy tells him, at long last, your child has been enlisted. Okay, so at some point Shinra had a child, I'm guessing with Iris, given what the last chapter was what the earlier scene in the previous chapter was kind of building up. And Shinra just kind of has the faintest uncomfortable smile. And this guy, who I don't think we should recognize, says, I guess even heroes worry about things, eh? And Shinra tells him, when it comes to your child, it doesn't matter if you're a hero. And we see two people enter in the World Heroes Force robes. Looks like Arthur and Inca. Like the hood looks very kind of, both Medusa, Soul Eater, but also, Inca's original outfit was very kind of inspired by Medusa. So it looks like Arthur and Inca. Anyway, Shinra just grins. I'm worried because I don't know what to expect, but I'm incredibly excited as well. And we see that does look like an older Arthur and an older Inca, who I guess at some point gave up being a witch and joined the World Heroes Force, or something. Again, Inca's a character that I feel like we needed a whole lot more from, for any part of her character to work. And Shinra goes on, when you live every moment without regrets, with everything you have, death is no big deal. These lives we're given, we should enjoy them like big idiotic fools. It's what lets our souls burn bright. And then we cut to in a long distant future, with death in the death room. There goes my last shred of denial of Soul Eater prequel theory. As Death says, now then, a godchild in the shape of a man. What sort of kid will you be? Okay. He's like, I'm not far enough in Soul Eater to exactly know how Kid came into being. But he says, oh, I know. I'll make him in the image of the boy who saved this world. Hello there, Kid. Okay. And then we see a baby Black Star training, a baby Soul just sort of gazing up at the stars. We see this picture book of, I'm guessing, the old world on fire and what appears to be the Albarn household. As we see Spirit and baby Maka, and from my understanding, that's the first time we've ever seen Maka's mom in any way, shape, or form, right? I've heard the manga never actually shows her face. As Maka's mom says, and that is how they made a world that wouldn't fall to despair. And then that seems to be the end? Thank you for reading. Please look forward to Okubo Sensei's next work. Next is Soul World, Fire Force Finn. And then we have this special extra comment that I'll go through before I talk. Oh, first, I'm going to talk about this. Please look forward to Okubo Sensei's next work bit. And next is Soul World. My feeling is that next is Soul World is not saying, that Okubo is going to write another manga called Soul World. He's saying that after Fire Force is the world of Soul Eater, which again, I made my problems very clear on throughout the past several weeks. But anyway, please look forward to Okubo Sensei's next work bit. Anime News Network just this morning published that little blurb as a news item. And let me read a bit of their article. So the second paragraph here says, many manga magazines use this stock phrase, look forward to X's next work, whenever a manga ends. So it is currently unclear if Okubo will actually launch another work in the future. So again, this doesn't necessarily mean that there will be a next work. It just means that the magazine isn't going to say that's the end for Okubo forever and ever and ever. You'll never see him again. But yeah, that is the end of Fire Force, and there's still 11 pages here of various stuff that I'll look through before we wrap up this series. A special extra comic by Atsushi Okubo. This is Atsushi, a place where people's dreams come true and gather before the final deadline. I believe this is kind of a gag series Okubo did a lot during the manga release of Soul Eater, I think. We're drawing the final chapter, everyone. The deadline's tomorrow. If we don't give it everything we've got, we won't make it. Let's go! And someone comes in. Pardon me, Okubo-sensei. Do you have a moment? Editor Tia? I thought the deadline was tomorrow. And his editor says, just come with me for a moment. Huh? And then we have, we don't see the continuation of whatever that's leading to. Because we then have this little goodbye moment from Pusu Pusu, from Sojami. Congratulations to Atsushi Okubo on completing Fire Force with such an incredible ending. It's been one of my greatest joys experiencing your works and art over the years. Thank you for everything, and I can't wait to see what you do next, whatever that may be. To everyone, it's been an amazing journey. Thank you for reading and all the support. Fire Force may have ended, but we still have so much to look forward to, so don't lose hope. Make sure to use the hashtag #ThankYouOkubo hashtag on Twitter to show him our appreciation. Until Season 3, peace out. Pusu Pusu Scam, Sojami, Zuzukes. So before I go forward, this is a good place to sort of, have a thank you for Sojami in particular, and all of Pusu Pusu as a whole. As I recall, I might be slightly misremembering the timeline exactly. I was not involved in the scanlation in any way, shape, or form. But as I recall, for a long stretch, in the aftermath of Manga Stream dropping the series around Company 1, and the series finally kind of getting big around the time the anime took off, this was largely like Sojami soloing this, right? I might be mistaken, but that's some impressive shit. I know very little about manga scanlation, but I can imagine that is incredibly difficult. So thank you so much to everyone at Pusu Pusu for working on this series over the years, and Sojami in particular for sort of keeping it alive back when it was like a one-man show. But yeah, that's some good shit. And then we have this bit here, our next page, 25. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. The article from ANN I mentioned earlier says something about the same issue, the one that this chapter came in, also teased there will be an important announcement for the franchise soon, which is very clearly Season 3. Like, what other announcement could there be for the franchise is going to be Season 3. And maybe this page is the important announcement page. I'm not sure. We have some fan works on here. More fan works. Lots of fan works. It's celebrating the end of Fire Force. We have a skydiving page. Maybe it's Okubo skydiving. This might, given what we're seeing in the untranslated bits, this might be what the earlier gag was referring to. I'm not sure. Some people in Fire Force cosplay. And then, yeah, more fan art. It looks, or no, these are various color covers throughout the series, I think. But yeah, that is Fire Force. Okay, so I don't know how I feel about this chapter. First of all, I'm going to talk about the very end first. Because what I've always felt was sort of the big problem with Soul Eater prequel theory, right? Is that at the end of Fire Force, you want to be focusing on Fire Force, right? We spent 6.5 years with this manga. It's ups and downs, largely ups, but there were some downs. But I've had a blast reviewing this series since I think June of 16 was when I first put out my first, back when we were still calling it Fire Brigade of Flames. My first Fire Brigade video, way back, I just graduated high school. And at the end, you want to be focusing on Fire Force, right? This is Fire Force we've been reading. And if it had ended with Shinra's "It's what lets our souls burn bright," I still have all my various problems with the epilogue, the way Inca feels like she's supposed to be an important character, but largely isn't. The way that really, with the exception of these two sort of silent pages, every single reference to a female character, or two silent pages before the 25 years later bit, every reference to a female character is in reference to a man she's romantically attracted to, or not even sexually attracted to in Inca's case, but wants to, like, thematically have his babies, is just kind of weird. I have my issues with the finale. Also, Inca randomly joining the heroes force at the end. But it would be roughly fine. We'd end sort of reflecting on the characters we spent all this time with. But then we'd just get 4 pages of the cast of Soul Eater. And so what that ends up doing is that instead of reflecting on Fire Force, we're reflecting on Soul Eater, which has kind of always been the problem. Always been the problem since Soul Eater prequel theory first became clearer and clearer, but I desperately denied it, because I just wanted this to have a good ending. And yeah, that's sort of the problem, is that, like, the end of the series should be focused on Shinra and his friends. We focused on the good folks of Company 8, like this shot that Sojami uses in his goodbye letter of, like, what I used for my thumbnail for 302, of Company 8 just, like, hugging it out, celebrating this new world. Maybe, like, having a 25 years later time skip is not a bad thing. I don't hate, even assuming that all of the post original manga Naruto stuff had never happened, I don't hate chapter 700 as an end of Naruto. But even this would be like ending our series on Shinra. That's good. Shinra is our main character. Maka is not our main character. And ending the series on Maka is not really how I think the series should have ended. I don't know. It's just these last 4 pages are kind of rough to me. I'm not really a fan. I don't know. And then the chapter itself, I've kind of said my piece about Inca. I don't have a whole lot to add about Inca. Inca, when we first met her in the 5th pillar, I know she was, like, once the anime came out, was largely hated. I thought she was fascinating. She was, we've seen so many, the damsel in distress trope is centuries old, and then we've reached a point where subverting damsel in distress with the damsel saves herself has also, at this point, while it's better than damsel in distress gets saved by the big strong man or whatever, it's still also kind of become a trope in its own right. And so Inca, being so defined by her own personal desires that she chooses to side with her kidnappers was a fascinating place to really continue to grow Inca as a character. And then Okubo never really grew Inca as a character. And then these last, 5 or so chapters have tried to posit her as being so important to the plot. She's, the final foe that Shinra is still chasing at the end. But then also in the true end, she's, joined up with the WHF, which is also weird. I don't know what's going on with that. Also, one thing I should have brought up last week but really didn't is why the hell the WHF adopted those, awful baggy pants Haumea wore during her time as the Saint. Those are always ugly, and they're not any better looking in black. But I don't know. Just the epilogue, I was just not a fan of the epilogue, is my problem. Even beyond Soul Eater prequel theory, Okubo all of a sudden deciding he wanted Inca to be super important, but also never really doing the work to make Inca super important. Never really landed well. So yeah, the epilogue as a whole, I mean, I like getting to see people just goofing off in pages 11 and 12, assuming, as I'm hoping is true, we're not supposed to read anything romantic at all in the Haumea Charon bit, which would just be so fucking gross. But, like, assuming that, 11 and 12 are definitely, like, the peak of the epilogue here. They're fun. It's just, like, I like seeing all of these characters we've come to know over the past 6.5 years getting to have something like a happy ending. Also, I think I'm just realizing this now, I think that's Lisa with Maki on page 11. But anyway, my point being, I'm not a big fan of the epilogue. I don't think it works on almost any level. I'm fine enough with the bit 25 years later, if it weren't for Inko randomly becoming a good guy at some point in a way that I feel like, again, it just feels like there are huge chunks of Inka's story missing, that Okubo never really knew what to do with her. And that's a problem that's kind of plagued her really since the aftermath of Fifth Pillar, when it became clear that, like, she was not really coming back in a meaningful way. But anyway, all that being said, that's my thoughts on the epilogue, on the ending of Fire Force. But the thing about a final video like this, a final chapter, is that even if Okubo really seems to want us to be reflecting on Soul Eater, I'm going to take a minute to reflect on Fire Force. Because for all the problems the ending has had, and for all of the fan service problems that have sort of littered the series throughout, I fucking love this manga. This is, honestly, do I think this is, like, the greatest manga ever written? Not really. But it's one of my favorites. It's one that, like, I've gotten to watch, start from a not great, not terrible, but not great beginnings, and slowly grow into what I would have argued, I think the best sustained run, I think the best moment in the series is obviously Arthur Dragon. I would fucking love that shit. But the best, like, long-term content was, like, the 100 or so chapters from Fifth Pillar to Obi's Rescue, where every arc was just hitting on all cylinders. And at that point, I would have called it one of the best manga no one was talking about. Because it was like before the anime came out, so it was kind of still under the radar somehow. Everyone kind of brushed it off after the Hibana arc was, like, not great. But it was just blowing me away week after week. You can watch those old videos. I'm sure they're not as good as my current stuff. I was much younger then, to boot. But, like, those arcs are genuinely incredible. And there's still some really good moments all throughout. Arthur Dragon. A lot of the stuff during the Cataclysm, even if, the Tamaki, for some reason, I think everyone is kind of clamped on to the Tamaki assault stuff in their memory. Maybe because it was, like, the last big fight of the doppelgangers. The burn stuff calmed down pretty easy. The Benimaru was, like, a bit of a bait and switch. So the assault is kind of the last of the doppelgangers that people really remember, I think. And that was, not great, not good. It was pretty bad, I'll admit. But almost every other doppelganger fight was just so much fun. The dragon fight wasn't really a doppelganger fight, but the Rekka doppelganger was fun. Just the whole build up to, like, Arthur playing Dragon Quest was such a good bit. We had Charon, all-time classic, character. The Raffles fight. My point being, despite my problems with how the manga wrapped up, this manga was so good. There was so much good shit in Fire Force. Which part of it is why, the parts that don't work, things like Tamaki's Lucky Lecture lore, things like the epilogue, hit so much worse, is that, like, you can see how good a storyteller Okubo is when he's not making some questionable choices. There's some great shit in here. And then I get even more frustrated because there's also some bad shit here. I don't know. I mean, I started reviewing this series. This is one of the first series I ever read when the first chapter came out. It was before I was even doing this channel. Back when, like, I think it was Manga Stream. We, like, put out the first chapter and I, like, oh, that's the Soul Eater guy. And I had only seen the Soul Eater anime, like, a couple of years before. Not like a decade before like it is now. And I read it and I got hooked. And, I kept on going and I reviewed it and it got better and better and better. And this, I was reviewing it all through college and now post-college. And I'm kind of getting perhaps a little overly sentimental here, but this is a series that means a lot to me, is what I'm saying. And I'm gonna not focus on any of the bad stuff here, because I love this series. I love these goofy little doofuses who are such a tight knit family bond. And despite my issues, if Okubo's coming back, I'm fucking here for it. On the strength of Fire Force alone, I am here for whatever the fuck Okubo does next. If he does anything next. Again, we don't really know, given that phrase is used as like kind of a stock phrase. I don't know. But I love this little series. And I'm really sad to see it go. I'm glad it went out on its own terms and not doing like the old school shonen manga thing where it would just keep on running for like a decade or something. I'm glad it's going out on its own terms, no matter what those terms happen to be. And for that, I mean, what more can you ask for? So yeah, that's Fire Force. That's Fire Force, this weird, wacky, so fun, and so incredible most of the time, so incredible series. So yeah, thank you to Okubo Sensei for writing this whole work. Thanks to Sojami and all the folks at Pusu Pusu for all their hard work scaling this series over the past 6 or so years. And honestly, thanks to y'all who have, at least people on this channel watching my Fire Force content through the years, because, we're all different people than we were back in 2015 when this series started. And for people who have been here from the beginning, thank you. People who have been here for like 2 videos, thank you. I'm still going to be around also. If you want to watch any of my other content, I'm reviewing a whole bunch of series at the moment if you want to watch any of that. With like Fairy Tail and Eden Zero and Boruto and Butler, Blue Exorcist coming back in like a month or 2. We have like Yomi no Tsugai, Hiromu Arakawa's new work, To Your Eternity, all kinds of shit that might pick up the itch that Fire Force is no longer going to do as it's gone. But yeah, it's been a blast reading this for the past several years, and I want to thank everyone who's involved in making it, everyone who's involved in watching my content. Thank you, all of you. And yeah, that's it for Fire Force. That is the definitive end of Fire Force. So I hope you all enjoyed this chapter and the series and all of this, all of everything Fire Force has been for the past 6.5 years or so. And if you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe or, do whatever makes you happy, And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!